federal government should establish a feed-in tariff that requires electricity utilities to purchase wholesale electricity from wind and solar power producers through long-term contracts at a fixed premium above the wholesale market price of electricity. 1AC China Glut. Slow global demand and oversupply is placing China's entire renewable industry at risk. New York Times 2012. China's in disarray. Chinese manufacturing is creating an enormous oversupply. The result is a looming financial disaster. For leading companies in the sector, if they're not careful, the whole sector will disappear. It is a global problem. It's primarily the result of an imbalance between supply and demand. Problems are the result of overcapacity and not trade restrictions. Bankruptcies and foreclosures have done little to ease the global glut. PTC didn't do enough. Australia, 1.5. In the U.S., the wind market has been built on the back of a lucrative tax credit. Even if a deal can be done, orders are forecast to plummet between 70% and 90% this year. European markets have already reached their capacity. New growth and demand is key. Zacks, 2012. The growth of alternative energy companies has been directly related to the state of the economy. The reduced demand environment has come at a particularly inopportune time due to the sector supply glut. The core markets are fast nearing maturity. To counter this type of growth, companies are increasingly focusing on U.S. markets. Failure to secure exports will crush China's economy. Forbes News 9/26. Chinese economy is losing its attraction for foreign investment. Trade figures continue to weaken. Domestic demand is insufficient. The economic bubble is bursting. The third consecutive monthly decline is an ominous sign. The outlook for foreign trade appears grim. Chinese economic downturn causes World War III. Plate, 2003. China's disintegrating. Would not gauge into chaos. Refugees would head for places with poor border controls which can't handle them. Japan might look to annex a slice of China. India might make a grab for Tibet. Pakistan for Kashmir, and then you could say hello to World War III. Strong Chinese renewable sector key to solving domestic energy crisis, including shortages, coal reliance, and grid instability. Hart Center for American Progress, 2011. Expanding the renewable energy sector will move China in the right direction. Supply shortages and an over-reliance on coal puts too much strain on the transmission grid. Renewable energy to provide a better tier of better-paying green-collar jobs. 1AC distributed energy. Status quo policies maintain momentum for large power stations. Farrell, 2011. A major obstacle in confronting distributed generation is the outdated assumption that power plants will continually grow in size. FRIC, there is a systematic bias toward centralized power and one-way grid systems. FIT is needed for small wind and solar generators. Lillian, 2012. FITs continue to fail to make inroads in the U.S. Unlike in Germany, where individuals own 40% of the current renewable energy market, few U.S. programs allow participation by owners of residential PV arrays. Democratization increases desire for people to build a green economy, solve extinction. Mendonca et al. 2010. Renewable energy is accelerated on the part of the general public. When the public experience renewable energy, they will have a stake in the green economy. Further legislative greening is more likely to be welcomed. You can see a disempowered, disinterested populace become active in remaking fundamental aspects of society. Feed-in tariffs offer such public engagement in a simple way. Embracing them is an essential first step towards creating an economy that preserves the planet for future generations. Distributed grid checks failure. Class 2012. Natural disasters have profound effects on the electricity grid. Terrorist attacks would cause intense outages. Industrial companies depend on functioning electricity grid as the backbone of their economies. Impediments harm the economy. Decentralized energy can play an important role in mitigating risk and security threats. Blackouts, blow up chemical plants outweighs nuclear explosion. La Niña 3. The scariest thing about power outages is chemical plants and refineries with 24-hour operations, which, if interrupted, can result in consequences more disastrous and larger scale than an atomic bomb. Americans got lucky. Shutting down one electric power plant is enough to drop power output throughout the grid, followed by a cascading outage. Military is reliant on the grid. Outages undermine power projection and homeland defense. Stockton, 2011. The DoD relies on commercial electricity power for nearly 99% of its power needs. Extended commercial power disruptions adversely affect power projection and homeland defense mission capability, even short-term outages. Although most fuel pumping assets rely on electricity power will not operate during power outage, extended power outages significantly affected the DoD's execution missions both here in the United States and overseas. Military bases in the U.S. need decentralized power to maintain grid operability. Class 2012. Regulations are needed to further the development of decentralized energy grid. Funding will allow smart and microgrids to become the catalyst for decentralized electricity grids across the country. It is imperative for the U.S. to continue to provide financial and policy support. Hegemony prevents escalation of global hotspots. Re-entrenchment causes bickering internationally over leadership and prevents cooperation. Brzezinski, 2012. If America falters, chaos would be likely. Drift by America would be unlikely to produce an effective global successor. More probable would be inconclusive realignments in a setting of international uncertainty and fatal risks to global well-being. Russia will have its eye on the former Soviet Union. Europe will likely be pulled in several directions. Others may move to carve out their own regional spheres. None of these countries will have the combination of power to consider inheriting America's leading role. A more assertive Chinese nationalism could arise. A swaggering nationalistic Beijing would mobilize a powerful regional coalition against itself. The resulting regional scramble would become intense, given nationalistic tendencies among China's neighbors. Asia could be violent and bloodthirsty. The security of weaker states depends on America's global preeminence. preeminent. A waning United States would likely be more nationalistic, more paranoid, and less willing to sacrifice resources. Another consequence could be corrosion of cooperative management of the global commons, whose protection is imperative to basic geopolitical stability. FIT is key to global human rights and averting genocide. Shear, O2. If our economy continues to be based on limited polluting resources, there will not be enough for all. If there's not enough to go around, then the Nazi doctrine of national selection will not remain an isolated historical episode. We face the threat of new genocides and new wars and of ecocides brought on by humans guaranteed by the law of the market. The answer is not a natural economy which respectfully. The answer is a natural economy which respectfully partakes in the wealth of nature. What is essential is that locally, regionally produced solar energy should be consumed and marketed in preference to otherwise equivalent products. By switching to a solar resource basis, we can end the sham and ensure that there will be enough to go around. 1AC warming. Scientific consensus on anthropogenic warming, Anderegg et al. 10. Reviews on scientific literature indicate a striking agreement with the conclusions of the IPCC. Anthropogenic greenhouse gases have been responsible for the unequivocal warming of the Earth's average global temperature. We've compiled the most credentialed researchers. 97% of actively publishing climate scientists agree. The expertise and prominence of climate researchers vastly overshadows that of climate change skeptics. Electricity sector and CO2 are key. Barry et al. 10. Carbon dioxide is primary GHG emitted in the United States. Any successful GHG emission reduction plan will rely on a reduction from the electricity sector. New renewables can displace current emissions. Rossi, 10. New renewables can allow for the utility to avoid building a new power plant. Solar and wind facilities can be deployed more quickly than natural gas. Increased geographical dispersion of renewable energy facilities could actually increase the reliability of its system. The solution requires a fast shift to renewables. Mormon 11. To limit global warming to a temperature increase of no more than 2 degrees Celsius, today's high carbon economy must turn low carbon. Our business as usual trajectory is too low to limit global warming to 2 degrees Celsius. Market forces are too slow. Rate structure incentives are key to rapid transition. Mormon 11. Market forces appear insufficient to drive renewables at the speed necessary for climate change mitigation. Today's high carbon economy must turn low carbon by 2050 to limit global warming to 2 degrees Celsius. Peer-reviewed studies indicate 2 degree scenarios is a crucial milestone to limit the likelihood of massive irreversible disruptions in the global ecosystem. Model scenarios require a global renewable energy share of up to 43% by 2030. To achieve this would require complete rapid transformation of the energy sector. Renewables will not be available without substantial research and innovation. The de-incentivizing force fossil fuels externalities on investment in renewables innovation could be remedied if the energy incumbents had incentives for in-house renewables innovation. Without a strong regulatory obligation to grant grid access to incoming players, producers of electricity from renewables are left at the mercy of local operators who tend to eliminate competition. The U.S. environmental leadership is key to creating global action. Advanced by ETSI 2008. The United States is in a unique position given its economic and strategic power as well as financial technological prowess. U.S. leadership can influence international environmental policy and promote effective environmental governance. When the U.S. declines to exercise leadership, the impact is significant. Little progress is made without the United States. Worst case warming results in extinction. Ahmed, 2010. Current rates of increase in fossil fuel emissions create a largely uninhabitable planet. The IPCC's original scenario is far too conservative. Further global warming to trigger a process of irreversible runaway warming. Emissions beyond 350 ppm over decades are likely to lead to the total loss of Arctic sea ice, triggering massive methane injections into the atmosphere, endangering the survival of all life on Earth. No adaptation to the worst case, the impact is extinction. Tickle 8. Force sea rise would be catastrophe that would mean the beginning of our extinction. The world's coastal plains would be lost. Industrial infrastructure, much of the world's farmland, the Earth's carrying capacity would be hugely reduced. Billions would undoubtedly die. Solvency. Federal loan solves price restriction variability and taxes. RAP 11. FRIC determines the allocation of generation and transmission costs between jurisdictions. Some costs are assigned in proportion to each area's share of the peak demand. Others according to energy consumption. Federal taxes are normally divided proportionally among all states in a system. State and local taxes are more complex.
Okay, so what card did you start reading at?
I got through.
That's the whole thing?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about the China glut advantage. So exactly how would this solve China's glut of solar panels? How would your plan do that?
What would happen is we would be buying these solar panels from China.
Okay.
All the cards talk about needing to increase the demand.
I just want to be clear. So your internal link is that the plan causes people in the United States to buy solar panels from China.
No,
is that correct?
The United States is going to buy the solar panels.
That could be companies or people, either one.
Okay. All right. Excellent. Okay. So let's talk about the distributed energy and the grid. So you say that blackouts cause chemical plant meltdowns that are worse than nuclear explosions.
Yeah, if they operate on a 24-hour basis.
So how often would you say a blackout occurs in the United States?
I don't know. I mean, we had a pretty.
Do you remember the blackouts
in New York a few years ago? So
what about the blackout that happened in New York for 4 days straight, just a couple months ago, Hurricane Sandy?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Like
So exactly. So I guess what I'm getting at is how much brink is there for a grid failure leads to some crazy scenario of decline of hegemony or like an explosion of a planet.
It's all about the area that it hits. New York isn't going to have refineries.
So you don't
the type of facilities that we're talking about.
So you don't think the entire Bosch metro area has chemical power plants or military bases? I mean, is that your argument? Is that
my argument is that, I mean, the card itself, Latinina 3 says Americans got lucky. So regardless of whether or not they're there, the argument is there that it could be catastrophic.
But you are willing to acknowledge there's not a 100% risk of this. I mean, it's just maybe like a far-fetched scenario that's been.
I would not call it far-fetched by any stretch of the imagination.
Okay, great. So you say that China and their Asian neighbors are, quote, violent and bloodthirsty.
They could become violent and bloodthirsty if China begins to weaken. If China starts to weaken.
Okay. I just wanted to get that clear. Okay, and then you say that FITs are key to global human energy rights, and that averts genocide. So how can like an energy plant that happens in the United States give everybody global energy rights and avert a genocide?
What we're talking about is that's essentially the result of the hegemony impact that we're talking about with the card before.
So to be clear, you are contending that hegemony prevents global genocide.
Hegemony would prevent, because if U.S. has hegemony, we have influence in places where...
like places like Darfur, where we stop genocide? Or places like Srebrenica, where we stop genocide?
The U.S. can't dominate the entire globe, but
does the U.S.
can do what we can. We would prevent some genocide.
So what genocide did the U.S. stop?
I mean, that's not relevant to what...
Well, I mean, it is relevant if you're going to contend that hegemony stops
genocide.
An example of the genocide the U.S. stopped, I mean, we can go back to, I mean, obviously the genocide happened with the Holocaust, but who knows if the World War II could have been going on for a long period of time, then, I mean, more people could have died, so, because we...
Do you guys want to use this program?
You want me to prep?
No.
Cool.
Is it on here, the one that's here for that?
It is.
The one you just updated?
Yeah, it's the one you see. Oh yeah, I should have to. Alright, sorry. We're gonna flash them. Okay, you're good. You're good. All the other one you see. Bit tall.
That's the order.
Right. The order is going to be 3 off case, and then in order of their advantages, China, grid warming, and then solvency.
Cool.
Okay.
Give us another second here.
Just let me know when you guys have it up.
Okay. This is the Indiana 1 and Z, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Alright. Alright, ready to go.
Alright. And for self-case, their detached and orderly description of China reduces a complex and nuanced approach to society to a specimen that can be clinically observed and analyzed. This approach to knowing China renders critical reflection impossible and legitimizes violence as banned for. There can be something underpinned by the positive advantage model. The first ability to track uniquely of knowable object whose reality can be ought to be infrequently revealed by scientific means, and they rarely raise a question in the United States, and meaning the United States believe it to sort it out, and use conception of China as the learning out those are intrinsically linked to how possible being Chinese specialists see themselves up to toward China their social reality. In other words, it's self-living practice and it's part of the China their problem is of course merely described and disorder, security, or inevitable tending to control dangers, the impetus for global destruction. This creates self-fulfilling prophecies as Dairy 98. No other concept has the metaphysical punches to name people of analyzed over and states protect themselves from the vicissitudes in nature, and its name which other WMVs have been developed and transferring national interest, security, dull movies, necessary to pack and name millions, kill wealth to others, intellectually design muted, we've inherited a prior argument, the privacy, exceeding necessity of only one form of security that happens to be widespread metaphysical belief, security attack, the entire history of Western metaphysics, and everything is a method of triggers and feudal cycle collected by dairy seeking security for from alienating others to give similar impossible guarantees, story of differences, taking others into death and identifying, calculating no fear of sameness, and vote negative to reject the dominant framing of security that critical practice and prerequisite to effective policy solutions. That's Bridge 96. Inability to give meaning reflects partially inclusive leaders for professional bureaucratic experts trained is gained by learning to speak English in your language and to be further through critical realization lead expectation. Part of the problem being honest question how frame changes the preoccupation of real knowledge security exists independent of the context and demonstrate how security critics need to reframe the terms of reference. And next off case 0 will pass now momentum with Republicans, but hurdles remain. That's Martin 322. Developments of capitalism lead many to believe Congress will pass a comprehensive immigration bill this year, embrace comprehensive reform, support for eventual decision by hurdles remain for expected introduced to the House and Senate in the next month. Evolution, the GOP pursues national reform, immigration provided political referral, and the place House capital at Stokes 13. There include drug committee, which are political policy making it difficult, particularly when issues to lobby for specific design and price schedules and cause escalation to principal support for the policy that has a transparent cost determining opening up to percentage compared to other more opaque energies that fighting policy are highly invisible and maybe disproportionately targeted. And reforms key remittances, that's Oppenheimer 1913. They're better than even changes in the bottom will pass immigration reform will legalize undocumented residents will be good ends to the economy's most agree once workers get legal status to get better jobs and spend more money their relatives back home. And immigration reforms key to the economy for 3 reasons. 1, innovation, 2, investment capital, and 3, the aging workforce. That's Huffington Post 27. When it comes to restoring growth in our economy, future is more practical and urgent immigration reform. Our current immigration reform is outdated and not able to commit the demands of the marketplace. More than 40% of states, Fortune 500 companies find the child immigrant, more than 75% of the pension received by the top 10 universities in the United States, 11 immigrant and veteran. This is about to survival of our economy, way of life, and continue global leadership. We must do everything we can to keep the economy in the U.S. and then hailing the next generation can better for the more than boom generation set to retire. Our current aging workforce can't keep up with the demands, and we need more young workers both in the high and low skill areas of our economy. And this leads to great power wars, diversionary theory, and miscalculations. World 10. Economic dilemma, you see the likelihood of external conflict, economic ushers in the risk of miscalculation, expectation, future trade is the world undermining economic conditions, expectation of future trade blind likelihood for conflict in states will be inclined to use force. The crisis will trigger decrease in trade expectations, perspective, limiting economic interdependence will increase the likelihood of extra conflict. Don't specify, consider the current economic crisis. And next off, counterplan text 50. States government should establish a feed-in tariff that creates long-term prince contracts for new qualifying facilities that use wind power for energy production to ensure a reasonable rate of return. And states can do feed-in tariffs at 717. States or utilities could use tariffs as contract utility scale and renewable generation long-term contract already. States could create long-term contract and ship more than transparent contracts to similar feed-in tariffs. And states can adopt FIT that solves renewable energy production and avoids federal preemption. Net benefit: 1, states solve better than the U.S. of G and states together, and 2, autonomy is key. That's Dorsey 12. Federal government is disappointed while progress has been forged ahead. Instead, they navigate banking policy in accordance with federal life in terms allows producers to be connected with the grid. If the states can adhere the statutory requirements, states can establish effective feed-in tariffs regarding California's feed-in tariff providing way for the expansion of feed-in tariffs current law. Opportunity for the states to be crown policies come make prior federal residential states have the opportunity to raise arguments of states will give greater autonomy in energy pricing politics, and the net benefit is politics. Next up on to China. So first of all, non-unique, the Chinese economy is already tanked because of U.S. tariffs imposed on Chinese solar panels. That's McDonald 12. Tariffs are put financial pressure on strong Chinese solar manufacturers are suffering heavy losses due to the price cutting more. The tariffs are a critical time for Chinese solar report $100 million in losses in the year. Chinese solar equipment manufacturers were in the sanctions result in lost jobs. President Obama substituted Chinese tariffs an additional 35% in the first year on general assumption. The initiative saved a maximum of 1,200 manufacturing jobs in the United States. And in turn, only decreasing hegemony solves U.S. conflict over time on China times 11. According to intelligence, the realized likelihood China will not be changing its attention to the risk of conflict so great. You should consider withdrawing its security commitments. While this strong measure can move away from the conflict and pulling smooth panel for relations to help reach a new equilibrium and tensions would recede. And in turn, solar cell production and disposal creates lots of toxic waste that gets exported to China. That's Debtor 12. China's self-programmed trucks routinely pull and double up bubbling wet liquid. Russian reports articles of silicon tetrachlide, a highly toxic chemical burns human cyanide content, destroys plant life, finally reacts with water. The toxic waste is too expensive to recycle. And so such cases are far from rare. The solar photovoltaic industry expands little anticipated potential environmental costs of rapid expansion. And Chinese environmental destruction causes extinction. That's line 97. Chinese environmental destruction threatens all humanity. China can single-handedly guarantee the climate zone depletion. Other has become a reality. 5 of the most air polluted states in China. Every 4 deaths caused by lung disease. And nuclear war does cause extinction. That's just 06. Nuclear war never considered outside of computers, not physics, but a crude parameter force design. Maximum simulation, drawing, photochemistry, atmosphere doesn't design spread in natural history. Model is intervene these scenarios. Human design, not physical force account for vertical hoisting. This isn't fixing. It's computer game and shit. And no war arms in Asia. Central Asian stability. That's Fang 10. Certain defense John after the numbers, no country in Europe wants to use violent tensions in the trends of weapons development and never reduce the risk-taking behavior given the company to use Senate alliances, politics, regional cooperation based on every and impartial party upset the status quo and power position. China shows no sign of course. Taiwan becomes military assertive and next off grid. Turn pursuing privacy inevitably triggers economic decline, makes power war unsustainable. That's line 7. Cost of immigrant and likelihood to critical cost of the U.S. economy, we would 1,000 million in the United States would represent the need to grapple with the painful issues those questions should have to be facing, preserving the American empire, being perpetuating on and weakening the economy upon which rest. And turn, here's the next rule by U.S. primacy had causes terrorism, that's lane 7. 9/11 was a reenact of violence group hard specific political means against the United States. War is not a senseless passion, it's controlled by political object. Terrorism recently for means of commercial warfare by the United States attacks military wars slugging up to the United States. Middle East radicals hatching schemes like destruction, and it's hardly likely the Middle East would be hit the World Trade Center the United States hadn't identified so long as the mainstay of Israel, the ship of Iran's like the United States, global primacy imposes imperial sway on regions like the Persian Gulf. It would be the target of politically motivated terrorist groups like Al Qaeda, and terrorism leads to extinction. That's the metaphor. Consequence of nuclear attack by terrorism is established the negative features of the fighting world. The tension between civilization and religion would rise, and ethical conflicts would play. Also speed up the arms of the civil war. Critical attack of the strategies could lead to a third world war from which no one emerges victorious, and nuclear pollution affects the whole planet world. We lose. And warming doesn't solve fossil fuel dependence. That's Xener 12. Has a fantasy global warming effect 12,000 times higher than CO2. If one will take part in growth, it will be the side effects of no evidence. Solar cells could increase fossil fuels, limiting CO2 as a goal. Solar seems wasteful political strategy. And turn solar manufacturing costs to NF3, which is 17,000 times worse for global warming than CO2. That's climate 8. Nitrogen traffic was global warming potential 17,000 present in the atmosphere, 4 times the expected level. Limits a half dozen greenhouse gases does not cover NF3. And turn U.S. Heads fundamentally incompatible with the types of multipolarity necessary to solve climate change and other minor issues. That's hands 9. Energy from water, present climate disruption, declining emergencies, and increased antibiotic resistance, human activity requires much more cooperative response to deal with this problem. Is just new world order proposing much stronger focus on world preparation and long time frame and adoption stalls. That's mentalist 9. To begin the impression climate change is an immediate threat to society, sees going to alarmist misleading, behaviors extremely low probability, leading casual cohorts of science and economics clear. Vision over the activity will lead to mild consequences, severe impacts, predictive because of either no adaptation impacts will never occur because people will adapt, and warming won't cause extinction. That's bread 7. Climate change does the survival of human species, biodiversity depleted for other reasons, take centuries on flow, giving time to adjust. Abrupt climate change is unlikely to be ruinous. And we're going to skip through cars, go on to solvency. No solvency for solar power. Power costs are too high. That's Ledger 12. The estimated solar costs in 2016 250 million. The estimates for gas and coal generation are about 80. The cost of backup generation is 5 times higher than the cost for conventional electricity. And the plan raises electricity price and kills the manufacturing center. That's Alvarez 6. To base it on the electricity price following the U.S., the price would have to be 31% different conventional and electricity. And the high cost of electricity and food processing due to green jobs is interesting to go away. And no solvency tariffs mean that solar won't be able to cover. That's Bessinger 12. However, recent decisions, Latin reports on Chinese solar times as job killer because the vast majority of positions sector aren't on assembly and the price of solar is go up. Affordable covered to the cost of alternatives in the increase could be a deal breaker for many. And lack of production materials best solar solvency. That's Henry 11. Are technology materials that were potentially insurance supply? Some can be first polar cells rely on minerals sufficient to satisfy whereas magnitude increase for these technologies. And short means small projects can't even get wind turbines. That's service 7. Manufacturing capacity the pitch is accurate in the western developers had to secure their turbines about stop there. Open for cross X.
Alright, so with your first off case, you said that our depiction of China is inaccurate, but what we're trying to do is depict China when its renewable industry is collapsed and thus its banking system.
We're not necessarily saying your depiction of China is inaccurate. We're saying that the way you're constructing China as a threat is a way that you're threat constructing China, and so that is what's bad here.
Well, it's not.
Your description of China is detached and disorderly, and that makes China more of a threat.
China's not the threat. We're saying the threat is the chaos that could result from China collapsing.
Right, and then.
I mean, you said that the Chinese are.
Okay, but so you say that it's not China that's the threat. It's the rest of the area. Okay. Well, you just answered yes to that. So. As far as your the terrorism being a result of primacy, so 9/11 was largely based on religious differences. So why is primacy relevant?
Well, it was based on religious difference and extremism, but they they wouldn't have the intention and motivation to even apply that to us unless we were so involved and made ourselves such an advocate of Israel and involved ourselves in their politics. So
That seems like a very
it's not like their
rational.
religion specifically
but
said to attack the
That's a
United
very
States.
that's a very rational argument to make against a group of people who actually practice their religion like peacefully would disregard as irrational. So how can you rationally anticipate people who are largely regarded as
Well, we
entirely
can
irrational?
anticipate it at a much greater percentage. It'll be much more easier anticipated if we see the history of how, if we're going to be so much more involved, then it's not an equal risk for all countries. If we're involving ourselves in their
I
politics,
think
then it's going to be
To
likely that.
answer this question a little bit better, just to be clear, you're saying that like fundamentalist Muslims are irrational?
I'm saying that they've been disregarded by much of the other Muslim community as irrational because of their actions. So the rest of the world.
What's your
So
question?
I'm saying that you're trying to make a rational anticipation of a group of irrational people. So I'm saying, can you accurately do that?
Yeah, because it's not, you're making it seem like it's just an equal risk that they'll attack anyone. However, if we're specifically involving ourselves in their
I'm saying
politics
the
in that
motive-
region, it's going to be.
I'm saying the motivator wasn't politically or influentially based.
I'll need some breakdown.
Yes, please.
Cool, sorry, Nick. I have 3:35 left, if I started that correctly.
Just jump this over to you guys.
Is there a flash to us?
What, yeah.
What was the order?
The order will be,
Not yet.
the order will be, immigration, then, the state CP, and then after that, case.
Same order?
Yeah.
Can you repeat that one more time?
Immigration, states, and then after the states, I forgot to add this, China, disaggregate throughout there, and then case after that.
Just making sure you weren't dropping things.
Yeah.
There we go. They're anti-China.
Oh.
Is it here? I have it. She's gonna put it in right now.
Yeah, I have it.
Okay. Everybody ready? Alright. Alright, just start off with politics. The plan increases capital. The plan passes in the face of opposition. That is the definition of a political win. Win to replenish capital, pass scale 9. Political capital is renewable. It mirrors political fights taken, winning on certain issues, and legislative battles help increase political capital for future use, but not using political capital because it's dissolved rapidly. C. Climate bill will replenish Obama's capital. Hole 9. Political capital is a renewable resource that grows out of political success. If the Senate could pass climate change legislation, Obama would suddenly have a huge political win that would enhance his credibility. D. Win after elections, key to replenish capital. Greenwood 9. The president replenishes capital every time he gets a victory. It's crucial for this president has a victory so that the Republicans don't smell blood in the water as they did from the election. 3. Dissent is inevitable. Voting neg means the plan is debated in Congress and then rejected, which is worse for capital. 4. Political capital is not finite. Carlisle 2. Political capital is a myth. It is impossible for political capital to be depleted anymore. They can supply of courage be diminished by use. In Washington, power applied is power augmented. Turn popularity. Public support against climate change is at an all-time high. Rasmussen reports 11.9. The number of U.S. Voters who see global warming as a serious problem is at an all-time high. A new survey finds that 68% of the voters say global warming is a serious problem. B. Strong support for financial incentives for solar in spite of cylinders. Johnson 10.3. Cylinder had no impact on the public impressions of solar energy. Say a new poll from SEIA, Hart Research, 92% said it was important for the U.S. to develop and use solar energy, rated favorable by large majorities, regardless of political affiliation. Public support for solar energy has never been stronger. Approval for solar translates into feeling the government should do more to encourage its growth. A survey of respondents by a margin of 4-1 said that their government to support solar with financial incentives. C. Popular support translates into legislative victory. Cameron in Part 11. The political capital view of going public. The president can alter public opinion in his favor, which then translates into a legislative victory. The president's position must be popular with the public. If the president can convert the public, Congress will follow. 6. No forced choice. The plan is not a necessary cause of the dissent, and the desirability of the bill is not germane to whether the plan is a good idea. You can vote for both. Grid failure kills economy. Grows 2009. Tax on large number of electricity generators could have a lasting effect. We can figure out a way to replace that doesn't take months. Shutting down electricity in large areas of the U.S. For months, it would have a similar level of damage in the economy of a nuclear attack. State CP. CP will get struck down. The FPA preempts states' feed-in tariffs for utilities to operate in interstate commerce and for wholesales of electricity only allowed for interstate utilities, and for the retail sale of electricity. Preemption lawsuits hold on implementation of CP for years. State regulators won't enforce. Agencies capture proven by RPS experience. PERM, cooperative federalism. The links, 5 links to politics, forces federal action, causes loss of credibility, drains capital, etc. 6, doesn't solve environmental leadership, modeling and internal links. 7, states patchwork undermines business confidence, links to our competitive advantages. CP will be struck down. Ferry 12. FERC issued a definitive ruling on safe feed-in tariffs. The Commission's authority includes an exclusive jurisdiction to regulate energy and interstate commerce. The state efforts to regulate prices were entirely stricken. RPS programs remain within the requirements imposed by the Constitution. Feed-in tariffs feed-in tariffs do not fit. Constitutional issues explain why. Less than a handful of states have attempted feed-in tariffs. They've worked at the federal level but do not pass constitutional muster when implemented by states. Ferry et al. 10. Even in the interest of abating global warming, the promoting renewable energy, the supremacy clause remains a legal backstop. What the states may do is limited by the Constitution. Feed-in tariffs would run aloof of the Constitution. The constitutional limitations cannot be overcome by passing state statute. Feed-in tariff could be implemented by the U.S. Only via amendments of the PERMA and FPA. Both states' RPSs and state regulation of carbon emissions from power plants have been challenged in court. Preemption. Ferry et al. 10. The FPA empower FERC to regulate states for the interstate and wholesale and transmission of electricity. FERC jurisdiction preempts state regulation of wholesale power transactions and prices. Court will find state or local legislation preempted. The North American grid is composed of many individual pieces owned by the local transmission companies which operate under the overlapping jurisdiction. FERC jurisdiction extends all sales and in interstate commerce, there is no the threshold amount. If a small amount of interstate power is commingled with interstate power, the entire amount of power becomes interstate. Renewable power sales are diminished to affect one wholesale power transactions. The two interstate power transactions. These are subject to exclusive federal jurisdiction. Okay, let's move the case real quick. Okay, so basically, what they brought up in the cross-text about China, what we brought up in the cross-text about China being a threat, their whole disadvantage with that we're labeling them as a threat. That's actually not true. We're actually trying to get rid of their surplus, in that case, helping them, because we, as the United States, would not want World War III to happen. I don't know about you, but and then. Okay, yeah, so that's basically answers to their China disadvantage, basically saying that,
Move on.
okay, alright. Then going on to their price spikes, their solvency. This is monthly and energy cost increase are limited to the public, will be strict incentives. Stephen Ferry et al. 10. The average German electric bill was increased by roughly $3 per month. Fin implementation, public generally has supported the increase. Individuals have taken advantage of the incentive to install their own renewable generation systems. Basically, what this card is saying is that it has been proven.
Read everything.
The NF3 used in solar manufacturing, also used in computers, TVs. NF3 uses inevitable. NF3 used in production means it is one-time event, will not have near as big of an impact, because at the NF3 is used so little compared to CO2. CO2 must take precedence. It has more impact. Terrorist attacks are small and concentrated, won't lead to extinction, don't have the means. Terrorism inevitable. The U.S. has already acted globally. Attacks won't stop. They know us. They hate us. And again, going back to the price, basically what the feed-in tariffs do is they, like I said, in a proven state, in a proven country, it was only $3 per month increase with their electric bills, and even some of that has been offset by people installing their own solar panels on top of their houses or wherever it may be. Okay, and going on to their hedge argument, the U.S. world involvement is comparatively better than non-involvement. Even if we lose sustainability debate, we should still strive to defend American hegemony. There, 7. Each country knows it will never be perfectly secure, but that does not detract from the necessity of seeking security. Any involvement runs the risk of backlash. The U.S. recognizes it is better to be involved rather than to remain passive. Due to the power, the U.S. is able to defeat its enemies, reassure its allies, and dissuade states from challenging it. The United States should labor to maintain hegemony as long as possible, just as knowing that you will die someday does not keep you from planning your future and living today. Brooks and Woolworth 2. Brooks and Woolworth 2. Terrorism has been a perennial problem in the multi-popularity did not save great powers. To slide back toward the multi-popularity would be the worst of all for the world, the U.S. It would the pack and serve us a focal point for resentment. Threats would remain, but effective and coordinated action against them would be reduced. The impact is extinction. Alexander 3. Actually, cut that card. Oh, and going on to make sure wind and solar is key for this feed-in tariff. Make sure wind and solar is key to solve warming and global energy needs. Weak policies undermine political rapid transitions. Jacobson and DeLucci, 2009. A feed-in tariff program to cover the difference between generation costs and wholesale electricity prices is especially effective. A large-scale wind. Okay, yeah. My partner will pick that open.
Alright, for process.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh well, sorry.
Okay, on politics? You good?
Yeah, good.
Alright, on your link terms, everything about solar being popular, I was wondering if you had anything specific to feed-in tariffs popular, or are they all just kind of solar?
Feed-in tariffs being popular, currently in that, well, we do not, however, feed-in tariffs do involve solar energy.
That's cool. Your fourth bullet about the dissat being inevitable, if you could just explain that to me.
The 3 decide is inevitable. The voting neg. Okay, so basically what it means is if the judge were to vote neg in this situation, and if the states were to try and pass this, then it would be basically debated in Congress and then rejected. Like, so it's basically saying that
Is it like assuming what interplay with the counterplan, or I'm trying to understand how the decide is inevitable?
the decide is inevitable because if it's put within the states, then the federal government will want to step in and actually work with this, and that will create the debate that we're talking about, and that will create the backlash, which is, like you said, bad for human capital.
So what's the warrant that the federal government will inevitably step in and co-opt states? What evidence do you have that says that? And even why would they do that? Like, what's the analytic? I don't understand.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, currently with, I mean, the federal government and the states government are always, they always act, I mean, they always are to, the way the United States government is set up is that there's a state and federal government and they act together.
But there's no card?
create-
But there's no, like, why would
There
the
is
federal
no
government
card
step
underneath
in?
that bullet.
We have F5Ts in Gainesville. How come no one co-opted us?
There's, wait, no, I'm saying that the disad, the three, there is no card underneath that. That's what that is.
So the decide is inevitable because
We just
once
said-
you guys pass FITs in
Because
the
people
states,
will-
that
people will
federal
always
come in, but there's
attribute-
no cards for that.
People will always attribute whatever policies are made partially to the president. Even if the states do it, people will assume that the federal government has handed in,
Yeah.
making the counter plan not exclusive to
Right.
the politics of this end.
Right, alright, and in regards to your argument that China is not threat constructed, okay, so all of your impacts are talking about Central Asia war, right? War with different countries, or China's gonna get into war with, you know,
No,
this country,
Other
with
countries are going to make
What's-
land grabs in China, China collapses.
Okay,
And when in turn will cause World War III.
okay, why would it necessarily cause World War III?
Well, if basically there are nations around China trying to grab
They're
for
assuming
land.
they're all gonna use nuclear weapons to try and grab for
World
a
of
little
war
island.
doesn't you don't have to use nuclear weapons in a war.
Okay, so World War III doesn't imply it. Okay, that's
I would take that part.
Cool.
Do you guys want to see the price spikes card that you read that I
No,
brought?
that's okay.
So you guys ready or not?
I'm not ready.
Yeah. Okay. So the order is going to be the critique, then we're going to go to warming, grid, and China. Cool. Okay, so first on the critique, their China rhetoric makes a link inevitable. Extend Pan-4 who condemns the discursive construction of the other. The act reduced China to a specimen justifying violence and making critical evaluation of the impossible. Their argument is that China is actually a threat, but they concede that threats are inevitable. The way in which they frame China as what should be the focal point of U.S. policy considerations is orientalist and flawed. We can't obsess over the foreign unknown. They're probably not as violent and bloodthirsty, quote, as Indiana thinks. And onto a new link, pursuits of hegemony are based on a fantasy control that relies upon the existence of a threatening monster to maintain the illusion of personal strength and discipline. This grand strategy prompts resistance and creates a permanent state of conflict, turning constructed enemies into real enemies. It turns case, turns 2006. The other correspondent attempting fantasy and imperial omnipotence on a global scale, the neocon mind of turn them in fantasy into reality, reality will not confirm in fantasy. It won't stand still or keep any similar to a permanent order for that by every conflict. There's a whole concern that threats to control our security man never feels secure enough that the U.S. must control every event everywhere. As neocons assume every act of resistance looks like a genuine threat to the very existence of the nation. There's no good way to distinguish between nation and force that generally oppose U.S. interests and those that don't. And attempts to shore up U.S. hegemony are symptomatic of a dangerous obsession with control. This death drives terminates in apocalyptic violence. It's lifted in 2003. Energized by version of intense idealism, combating even order to even renew the world, both ready to release untold levels of violence to achieve that purpose. Such cosmic ambitions accompanied by an equally vast sense of entitlement of special dispensation and purpose to pursue its aims. To superpowers victimization brings on both a sense of humiliation and angry determination to restore or even extend the boundaries of a superpower dominated world and can grow to superpower power syndrome, or managing nuclear stockpiles and their war-destroying capability. And coming out of the 2AC, the AF cold conceded the perm debate. No new 1AR answers. The worldly AF could not exist within the worldly alternative. And moreover, the negative drop for Deadary 98 and star this card. It means we win that A, disorder and security are inevitable. Their impacts are terminally non-unique. B, intimidating control danger will provide the impetus for global destruction as national interests are transformed into suicide pacts that all intellectual dissent is muted. And no new 1AR answers on this either because it's key to our block strat and fairness and new impact. Security imposes calculated logic that destroys value of life is Dylan 96. Human beings seems most about the turns help to reduce music calculations for by reducing self to index calculations team cable constructing that allow political arithmetic by which security would reduce human freedom, induce either despair or surrender what is human to the dehumanizing calculated logic. And both their harm and solvency claims are false. Securitization leads to serial policy failure. This is Dylan and Reed in 2000. There is nothing so fiercely ridiculous to suggest that the real problem with the problem is exist presenting the level of subjects paralysis of analysis presented with policymakers seek to avoid their compelled constant response to circumstances or which they orderly have in fact both more or less control than they proclaim when they do not have the precisely control that they want in serial policy failure and field of all policy compels them into continued search for new assets that will extract them from the F4As in which they constantly find themselves enmeshed. Global liberal governance is not a linear problem-solving process committed to their resolution of object policy problems simply by bringing better information, knowledge to bear upon them. And coming out of 2AC, they also drop our alternative solvency, which means we solve our impacts every single time except Bruce 96 vote negative to reject the dominant framing of security. These critical practices is a prerequisite to effective policy solutions. Don't excuse them in the 1AR. Again, it kills our block strat fairness. Even if you let them slip, probably prefer our Bruce 96 evidence because this guy's brilliant and expert in security and threat contextual discourse. And besides, we can solve the entirety of the F by picking their advantages. Vote negative to endorse the 1AC Speech Act minus their security framing. On to the warming debate. Warming is a tough sell for them because they can't explain how the plan would spill over and stop the consumption of fossil fuels. They don't have one piece of evidence on this, which is crucial to their entire solvency claim. Besides, our ZR12 evidence clashes directly with their claims because it says that even if we displace a little fossil fuel consumption via the plan, it will never be enough to stop a runaway and cascading global warming. And they also don't have good evidence on the fact that their plan creates a massive amount of warming via the release of NF3s, which are proven to be 17,000 times worse than CO2 emissions ever were. Even if you believe there will be small amounts used, the impact of each use is massive. It turns the case, and the offense on this flow is particularly unbearable, especially since they're not answering our contention in the 2AC that only the decline of U.S. hegemony can solve global warming because the U.S. constantly stifles meaningful international climate policy discussions. The Kyoto Protocol's failure is case in point. They were weak in our time frame argument, so even if you believe they solve warming, weigh it carefully in the 2AR. Also, our Mendelsohn evidence that adaptation is a huge possibility, which means that humanity will be very likely able to persevere the changes in the atmosphere. Next on to the grid. Don't believe them when they say that blackouts will shut down chemical plants that cause them to explode violently. This particular evidence is empirically denied, especially in the light of cascading blackouts through the Northeast. Their evidence from 2003. You're also going to want to extend our Lane 7 cards that discuss how preserving American empire leads to economic collapse and makes it an inevitability. Pair that with the Royal 10 discussion of how economic decline leads to war, and boom, this cross-analysis, their cross-analysis is a joke where the only example of U.S. primacy not causing terrorism is 9/11. Our card specifically warns that group harbored specific political grievances against the United States. Terrorism is an asymmetric warfare against the U.S. by groups that lack the military wherewithal to slug it out with the U.S. toe-to-toe. 9/11 was a violent counter-reaction to America's geopolitical and cultural primacy. They say terrorism doesn't lead to extinction, but it says right in his Thayer 7 card, which is why he was clipping in the 2AC, because even his authors agree that terrorism will provide the evidence for global destruction. They also drop the claim that terrorism leads to extinction. And moving on, they make another argument, which I'm not sure if they extend, which suggests that FITs prevent genocide. However, turn U.S. imperialism creates genocidal, racist, and terroristic forms of suffering, outweighs any possible benefits. This is Poyello in 2010. It is morally wrong for one people to dispose, subjugate, or exterminate other people in injunction, or violent, but genocidal, terrorism, U.S. imperialism, U.S. terrorism, people around the world should throw off the shackles of racist U.S. imperialism, state terrorism, genocide, and more responses to their Thayer 7 laundry list, which is the only piece of evidence that they have to suggest that U.S. hegemony is good. Turn heads creates rampant Middle Eastern proliferation, and it makes the Middle East a hotbed for conflict. This is Yale Global 2004. On our hand, dominating approach to Gulf relations would be exclusionary. WMD would not be used as boundary in himself. Israel, Pakistan, and India would not be pressured to moderate the nuclear behavior, despite the potential negative effects of these nuclear activities on Gulf states and securities. And proliferation causes conflict, escalation, and nuclear war. Deterrence doesn't check. This is Mueller in 2008. We're populated by many nuclear weapons, stage controls, great invaders, regional conflicts. What escalates the nuclear use of one part of the world can trigger a catalytic war between great powers, driving them into a smaller regional conflict, particularly if tensions are high, more states that possess nuclear weapons and related facilities and more points of access are available to terrorists. And U.S. hegemony is bad because it causes rogue states, and it can't check back them like their Theory 7 evidence says. The United States has been unable to solve problems. Washington has worked overtime with those success to shut down Iran's North Korea and try to fail to settle Israeli-Palestinian conflict. All indicators of this problem will deteriorate further. We're calling America's troubles that it's adopted a flawed grand strategy pursuing global dominance might be doomed to feel like the backward dangerous ways of its relied too heavily on force grand strategies and begin to let its course interrogates by the other states called rogue states like Iran, North Korea, to the United States as the hegemon serving their own interests. And term unipolarity makes its space colonization impossible. This is Malik in 2010. And there's only one broad theme is international cooperation, which is one of the new policy and sort of foundation of this for achieving all our goals of space. More robust cooperation will be vital to develop more comprehensive systems. And this guarantees extinction. Getting off the rock is the only way to ensure human survival. This is Bomb in 2010. Another marked benefit of space exploration is reducing the risk of extinction of humanity and other Earth originating life. Without space colonization, the survival of humanity and other space originating life will be extremely difficult, perhaps impossible. While space colonization could provide hedge against these very long-term astronomical threats, would be to provide a huge hedge against the more immediate threats that face humanity and other species. Such threats include nuclear warfare, pandemics, anthropogenic climate change, and destructive technology. And onto the China debate, hold them to the cross-sex and devastate its advantage. They said that the absolute internal link to the China advantage is that the United States will begin to purchase solar panels from the Chinese if the plan is implemented, but they have no answer to our McDonald 12 evidence to AC, which suggests that China's renewable sector has already collapsed. It's not unique solar impact scenarios. The reason this argument makes sense is because the United States federal government has massive anti-dumping tariffs and countervailing duties on Chinese photovoltaic cells and wind turbine towers. Our McDonald 12 evidence is really good on this when it says that there's no interaction between U.S. and Chinese renewable markets because the tariffs are just that damn high. Their grid arguments end up being catastrophic because the propagation of hegemony prevents us from ever solving Chinese conflicts anyway, because U.S. interference leaves the possibility of Sino-Taiwan conflict omnipresent. This was dropped, means we control the China scenario, and these new arguments about China and the U.S. Being able to solve together don't relate back to the K, because we're using Chinese sources and we're talking about ways in which we can reduce hegemony and otherization of the Chinas to prevent conflicts within China. And turn Chinese weaponization is actually fueled by U.S. hegemony. This is Zhang in 2011. Chinese military and strategies based warfare becomes running certain the United States Chinese pursuit capabilities. The Department of Military Strategy designed to counter overall military capabilities of the United States is protective implies that given the predicted U.S. superiority in conventional warfare, Chinese military can have to continue its offensive program that protects China has made instigator of possible arms race and its quest for asymmetric warfare capabilities. This relates back to the security K in the sense that as we attempt to securitize, we make the impacts we fear a self-fulfilling prophecy. And on to the next argument, turn U.S. primacy spurs a Russia-China military alliance that ends in nuclear station. This is Roberts 2007. Russian Chinese military are connected to joint military exercise to remote response to new concern delusion about U.S. hegemony. The U.S. has proven that it cannot occupy the Iraq city of Baghdad despite 5 years of efforts to most certainly cannot occupy Iraq, China. That means the conflict towards which neo-contra driving with a nuclear conflict. Both the Russian and Chinese governments are trying to devote resources to their economic development, not to the military. They both are being forced by America's aggressive posture to revamp the military.
Okay, so first off, when you're, I believe your Bomb in 2010 card, you're saying that the U.S. hedge actually stops space colonization. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and that also relates back to the warrant of our climate change card.
Okay.
The United States doesn't have to cooperate with anybody in the international sphere. And the fact is, they rarely do. Why? Because the U.S. is that powerful.
Okay. So basically, so why would we have to leave the? Why would we have to leave?
Well, if you expect the judge to believe your global warming claims, then it would probably be a good idea to get off the rock if we were in that global warming, that there's a risk of global warming occurring.
Okay.
There's also other warrants built into that card. I think it's things like overpopulation or other types of environmental catastrophe, and there's always the risk of a conflict that your presidential hegemony would create. Getting off the rock would be an alternative.
What's the timetable on that?
I mean, it would probably take a little while.
Yeah,
What's a little while then?
What's a little while? I mean, our evidence states that we.
I don't know.
In the next few years, we have to do this. I don't know if we can colonize the moon of this century.
Well, given that you're probably not likely to solve any of the impacts in your case very shortly, I still think that a long time frame on escaping the rock is important, and something to be considered though.
And so onto the China. So you're saying helping China, so you're saying help all the China is that a critique in a sense, helping China is a bad thing, or we're defining China as a threat?
That's not it at all.
Okay.
What I'm saying is that the way you guys are arguing.
Are you interpreting it as that we're defining China as a threat?
You quite clearly are defining China as a
Okay,
threat.
thank you. That's it. All right. So you're saying that I believe it was in 2000, the first card that you started off with back when you said that in your 2AC that 2NC, excuse me, that the U.S. hedge was unimportant. That was from 04.
We didn't say it was unimportant. We said it was bad.
You said it was bad. Okay, so it's bad.
It's like particularly bad. It's
so you're
way
saying
worse
that
than
no involvement or non-involvement is better than the U.S. being involved?
a decline in U.S. hegemony doesn't mean there's no U.S. military. It means the U.S.'s strategy isn't a grand strategy of imperialism and domination, in which we forward-base in every country around the world and attempt to stranglehold international politics and conflict mitigation.
That's it.
You ready? Good?
Yeah.
Okay, you can start asking before I get one. You can go on me. Is it on screen? No, go.
Do I have 1 second to run these out?
Huh? Okay, wait. Oh, I have to flash. Oh wait, that was connected.
Here, you want to know?
Yeah. Also, could I please keep? I have to flash myself. Do you remember this first? Or not?
Then you can just give us that.
Alright. Oh, one hour, plus the last second. Oh, so order, it's going to be politics and the counterplan. Just let me know when you get it.
Yeah. Just 1 second.
Okay.
Yeah.
You guys are good? Okay, great. Alright, ready? And first off, politics. We're going to extend our Martin 322. It's a card cut yesterday. The immigration reform will pass now. There have been several developments on Capitol Hill and however hurdles Republicans remain, and that extends Stokes 13, that their plan particularly sets Capitol. All their cards. Okay, this card specifically talks about feed-in tariffs and how they have transparent costs than more opaque energy, so they're disproportionately targeted as unpopular, whereas all their evidence is just about generic solar popular with the public. We extend Oppenheimer and 119 that immigration reform is key to remittances, and experts agree that once our workers get legal status, they get better jobs and send more money home, and that is key to the economy because they play a vital role in immigration investment, and we need younger skilled workers as the baby boom population grows. That's Huffington 2.7. We extend our impact uncontested. That's Royal 10 diversionary theory and extinction level impact. That with economic decline, governments have an increased incentive to fabricate external military conflicts and cause wars. So they give us a list of reasons as why winners win. Certain things will Obama's win in climate will replenish capital. However, we say energy policy specifically overload the agenda and negates any benefit of win. That's man or nine. President focus on the industry and numbers of voting for learning in Congress. There's such as wide as publicized for learning is focused on realistic agenda to put capital to deliver our 7 points. And winners does apply to energy and backlash to guarantee that Silverstein 12. Journalists is a line of good shit to be positive jackets that way can be rebutting capital influence electoral more about economic health price. And winners don't win even if they do in theory. Obama thinks that fights drain political capital and his perceptions are what matter. That's Eberlin 121. Only by stopping the public from the present life need avoid power to years money from the political government and get them for political trouble and over time confirmed by modern president who will rely heavily on current president's mindset today as he's taking second over the office. And Obama's offer only blame sticks to him. That means winners losers healthcare proves this nigga 10. Obama's made about blame hoping to get insulate Obama what's not sticking in political divisions and fleeting, including the president's proven possible against cabinet triple blame shielding Boston Obama administration. No cabinet has emerged and everything sticks to him. And they say political capital is not finite. We say political capital is finite. And fights on one issue makes pushing another harder. That's Hayward 12. not a political happen one time. Energy is ways on political distinctions. Capital is expanding, cannot be easily reined in. Winners don't automatically carry over. Wins don't automatically carry over. Capital spin, that's page 12. Political Obama's bruising here by winning tax cut emissions, but his momentum may be hard to maintain the coming election. President victory and the House Republicans overshadow the last impressions that Republicans trying to find him, and agencies don't chill. Okay. Anyway, we're gonna move on. Okay, they read a bunch of cards about solar is popular. The warrants in our card, we extend ours already, and we also read a generic that solar energy is politically unpopular, and political is what matters, not public, because it has to get through Congress. That's laying 12. Solar sectors, energy managers under direct attack. Fossil fuels created slamming solar. In fact, 8% of the negative advocates so far focus on clean energy mirror actions in Congress, and also they say permanently both have their permutation constitutes actions outside of the scope of both the plan and the alternative, so it makes that moving target impossible for the negative to outweigh them. That's an independent reason to reject the app. You can't do both. Next we're gonna move on to the counter plan. We say, okay, so first we're going to extend our one C shell. First of all, states can do feed-in tariffs, that's 7, that states can adopt FIT that solves renewable energy production and avoids federal preemption, and the net benefit is that states solve better than USHE, and states again, autonomy of the states is key, that's Dorsey 12, and the net benefit is positive. So, okay, we're going to start by, alright, with this, sorry, real quick for the flow, we're going to start by extending some solvency cards that we're going to address, such as the 112 card, that there's a lack of production materials, which guts solar of its solvency. We're also going to say no solvencies for solar power, that costs are too high, that's Zyker 12. They didn't address either of these, and it's, we're also going to extend our solar solvency under warming, and our turns, that solar actually increases the NF3 emissions. They say it's in everything, however, the solar manufacturing specifically causes e-waste that we read in the other flow that specifically gets imported to China. And so basically group all of these solar solvency arguments and make it a net benefit to the counter plan, because our counter plan text specifically says that, one second, the 50 states government should establish a feed-in tariff that creates long-term purchases that use wind power for energy production. Meaning the net benefit to the counter plan now is that we get to avoid all the unaddressed link turns for solar solvency. We're advocating feed-in tariffs for wind only, which can still solve their impacts. So we're avoiding all the negative turns. We're only selling feed-in tariffs for wind. So the counter plan solves for everything they solve, and it actually solves for more, because now they have negative disadvantages associated with solar, such as solar increases warming and solar. Okay, instead of a centralized generalized approach, okay, so now we're gonna just extend some more cards from back to the state's counter plan. Extend Milford 10 that energy policy is most effective at the state level because it'd be tailored to each regional needs, especially something with wind and location placement. It's vital for each state to decide exactly how to install it. Also, extend our powerful argument suggest a centralized policy resulting in death and destruction may be our downfall. The counter plan solves case more effectively than the plan, has the net benefit of avoiding politics, and also avoids the impact of oversaturation and the state solvency. Okay, none of this evidence assumes the counterplan fiat uniform. Okay, 50 states action solves better. That's Milford 10. States remain the left towards experimentation. The policy agrees. 50 states more programs. Okay, they say federal preemption. However, we say no preemption. For solar seller at 93. Federal regulation really preempts state solar. The Supreme Court has held that all of the comprehensive federal regulation of energy rules all state energy sector doesn't preempt the states from regulating economic aspects. And so we say also uniformity. The counterplan solves 100% of their arguments, and we say investors watch state policy with closed eyes and nationwide signals. And none of their evidence assumes uniformity. And so independently, state action is influential. All right, no, we're going to skip that part, and we're going to say federal law is not uniform. That's Goldsmith 97, so that doesn't solve. And we say promise of uniformity in federal law is illusion. We reach a conclusion, but the shorts and content laws are uncertain. Hardly good federal law is thought to serve, and states can incentivize renewable. That's California approves. Sorry, that's time.
Oh, what's that?
I guess we will start that.
Okay, you have 3:35.
See, then we're going to go to their China K.
Okay.
We're going to do counter plan, then policy. solvency. Well, actually, first off, we were kicking the firm, not doing it. On the solvency, we read a card that said that there's no price spike, which takes away part of their anti-solvency claim. We also did read a card, Jacobson 2009, that said wind and solar are key to solving global warming, so we do still have solvency despite their claims. On to the first off case, this entire China K is based on the idea that we are considering China a threat. We're not concerned about China threatening us. We're concerned about if China just pretty much disappears politically, what results? We have no link to this K. They have no evidence that really links us to it other than trying to say that we are interpreting it as a threat. But clearly we're not, because all the impact from our China advantage are based in a world where China disappears. Okay, the counter plan. It's just a natural tendency for people to associate whatever policies get passed with the president. People will not just decide that it was government or that it was a specific individual. People always feel like the president has his hand in everything. In that regard, they do link. The counter plan does link to politics. As far as politics go, we have said that that the comprehensive immigration reform will not pass. We've read evidence that said that it would get struck down by FERC, and that we've also read evidence that's saying that the FERC has jurisdiction before the states, so the FERC would preempt what the states are able to do. So essentially, the counter plan doesn't actually exist because it's not actually possible. They haven't read anything to say that the FERC would allow it to happen. So the counter plan is out the window. As far as politics, because as far as comprehensive immigration reform, we extend our winners win argument. I mean, it's something that politically, after you beat someone in a political battle, people will not want to stand in your way. It's just something that naturally occurs because politicians want to get reelected. They don't want to look bad. So ultimately, what will happen is politicians will get out of Obama's way. We extend climate bill will replenish Obama's capital, HAL 9. Political capital is a renewable resource that grows out of political success. If the Senate could pass climate change legislation, Obama would suddenly have huge political capital that would enhance his credibility. As far as their arguments that are saying that Obama thinks that fights lose cap, that's not relevant because we're assuming that the passing of this act is not relative to how Obama feels about political fights. They're just saying that he probably wouldn't do it, but for the act, we're in a world where we're assuming this is happening. It's not about, well, the president might not do it. It's about this is happening, here are the results. So the Obama thinking that political fights lose capital, it should just be thrown out. And now on to China. Their main argument here is that China's environmental destruction would cause extinction, but that's inevitable because China's environment is so poor already with all the pollution over there. China environmental destruction is not affected by what we're doing more than it already has been in the past. As far as the grid and the terrorism argument, which kind of got grouped into the same thing, they didn't respond to the idea that terrorism is inevitable because countries already know and hate the U.S. So essentially, that the whole terrorism idea would happen regardless of what we do on the app. And the whole idea is very alarmist. That terrorists would just suddenly mobilize into massive groups and just be able to really take out a true power like the U.S. That doesn't really have any basis. They argue that economic preservation leads to war. Well, I mean, it's just historically, war always occurs because the natural tendency for any country is to try and preserve itself. So I mean, the U.S. falling wouldn't end war. People would still die. So essentially, war in itself is inevitable because countries will always seek to maintain themselves. So that warrant is just it's not especially pertinent to the AF. We extend our hedge good argument. All right, as far as the warming goes, the space exploration argument should be dismissed. It's an argument that has an enormous benefit, but it has no time frame. So I mean, if you allow it, it outweighs anything that we could say on the AF because the huge benefit that it would allow. But because there's no time frame, it can't really be held to be relevant because we can't weigh our AF against what the space exploration would actually do. We extend our arguments that said that wind and solar were key to solving warming.
All right, we'll take our breath.
Cool. Sam.
Yeah.
Gonna do it live.
It's gonna be politics, security, and then the hedge turns on case. Ready to go?
If you are.
Okay, so first on politics, concede that FIT won't pass no matter what, and extend Stokes 3 that the plan saps capital. This card specifically talks about feed-in tariffs have transparent cost structure compared to other more opaque energy subsidies, so they are disproportionately targeted as unpopular. And it said Lilly and told that solar energy is politically unpopular because fossil fuel industries have created an unprecedented volume of campaign ads slamming solar energy. 80% of campaigns actually have focused on clean energy. This means that there's no risk of the politics DA happening, and even if you believe that there's some marginal risk of the politics DA happening, you're going to prefer the impacts that we proceed to explain on the other two elements. On to the security today. This is an easy battle for the negative national security rhetoric cost at multiple levels. They rely on generic analysis to win them in this debate, but they don't substantially engage the key arguments we're making here. The obsession with securitizing everything destroys whatever chance they could have of crafting effective policies. See the war on drugs, but more importantly, they make the impacts they fear by self-fulfilling prophecies. On to the China link, there, China rhetoric makes it link inevitable. Extend pan forward, a discursive construction of the other. The act reduced China to a specimen of justified violence and making a critical evaluation of China impossible by using China as the source of all, as source and origin of all U.S. policy considerations. And onto the hegemony links that they drop into the 1AR. No doubt their hegemonic rhetoric links to the security argument. Except that China 2006 evidence which tonight their desire for hegemony is fruitless and never used to maintain the illusion of personal strength and discipline. He says that hegemony makes conflict permanent and that the hegemonic process inevitably turns constructed enemies into real enemies. And also extended lift in 2003 evidence it was hard for the idea that our need to securitize against China and via global primacy creates a superpower syndrome that has a world-destroying capacity as far as cosmic ambition that justifies violence and territorial expansion. They dropped both the links we read in the blog, and the perm is not out. The perm is not out for them because they never made this argument the entire debate. Give them no weight on that. And at the impact level, they were all the new impacts that we read were dropped as well as the original impact. I said Dylan's 96. The security puts a kind of logic that destroys the value of life because constructed threats and inescapable fear to be in constant arithmetic makes it impossible. So even if you let them slide by and say that they win, that they save us from extinction, they save us from extinction in a world where life sucks. And solvency is a regame anyway. Extend Dylan and Reed 2000. Both their harm and solvency claims are false because advantage of random factoid securitization leads to serial policy failure. The real problem with privatization exists precisely the level of AF assumptions, just paralysis of analysis, precisely what policymakers seek to avoid because they are compelled constantly to respond to circumstances over which they ordinarily have less control than they proclaim. Means you don't let them have case if you prove they link because securitization creates the worst types of policies. And of course, extend the drop when I see our impact that attempting to securitize threats they fear creates a self-fulfilling prophecy. You want proof? Well, look at that hedge terms that we put on case that they weren't able to respond to. The affirmative should be reprimanded for the Speech Act, which our hedge and China link evidence indicts the affirmative for constructing artificial threat and fear-mongering. They turn around into a farce which leads to real-world violence and serial policy failure by using the ballot to disapprove of their discourse, security framing, which is original from the alternative. We can make the world a better place. And even if you don't buy that framing, buy this. The 1AC framing of the plan ruins its chance of success because its advocacy is couched in securitizing rhetoric, which incites violence solvency hopes. That's an extended impact scenario from Dillon and Reed. So let's think about this as a brief underview of how you're going to vote on security K. It's too late for new theory arguments. They conceded our late for hedge we read in the block. They conceded that all of their impacts are terminally non-unique. They never make a perm, they concede on all of our impacts, and they never talk about all of C1s, which means that voting for the alternative solves every single instance of a threat. Onto the hegemony claims, they're simply not being responsive to them in the 1AR, which is extremely unfortunate for them. First of all, I said our warming arguments that the only way to prevent the world from reaching extinction via warming is to collapse global hegemony, or U.S. hegemony, because the United States has attempted to dominate all discussions of climate change policy, which is why nothing gets done in the UN and major climate change talks. That's why the Kyoto Protocol failed. That's why the talks in Northern Europe failed recently, because the United States will never get on board, and they'll always command their small strategic states that they have in the Pacific Islands to also reject any type of meaningful climate change. Also extend that climate change is fundamentally incompatible with preserving a strong economy. This is lane 7, because the cost of maintaining American empire will sooner or later push us over the brink of what's a sustainable amount of government expenditures and inevitably lead to extinction. That's the Royal 10 card that's been brought up throughout this debate. They don't put any evidence on this, so even if you're going to give them some risk of the politics, but they're inevitably going to go for when they do the 2AR, you're still going to prefer this economic collapse scenario before ours, because they haven't made one counter argument against it. They said the terrorism lane 7 claims, we've proven that the root cause of terrorism is U.S. hegemony. Their only arguments to this in the 1AR is that terrorism is inevitable. What was the word they gave you? Because other countries hate the United States. Well, that makes perfect sense. If you run by our claim, the reason other countries hate the United States is because we attempt to imperialize and control them in geopolitical terms and also in cultural terms, which means that we control the terrorism movement as well. And you want to extend a drop 1AR argument that Middle Eastern proliferation is caused by U.S. hegemony and the Yale Global 4 evidence, and then also the Mueller 8 evidence that this leads to extinction independently. The United States causes this. They don't have any impact or any evidence or analytics as to why this wouldn't be true. And you're also going to want to extend the Poloya genocide argument, which means that the United States government is the greatest purveyor of violence in the world. The U.S. government causes genocide. They want to shy away from that debate after we press them hard in the first cross-section. But when you evaluate this as a judge, you look at the root cause of genocide as being U.S. hegemony. And if you don't look at it as being U.S. hegemony, you look at it being somebody else's hegemony. That's why German hegemony over Europe in World War II caused the Holocaust to happen. And so you have to give us genocide in this debate as well. And you're also going to want to extend the space colonization argument, because their only thing they can say against it is that time frame is unlikely, but who cares if it's conceded that it will happen? It's just a matter of when. And you also want to cross-apply our arguments when we extend that hedge turns America's ability to mitigate conflict in Taiwan, which prevents Chinese conflict, and hegemony leads to China's Russian militarization.
Alright, 145.
We shall go to on case after that. Everyone ready?
Sure.
Okay. So specifically, they
Kick the order, just do that.
okay. Kick the order originally. Specifically, they did not kick the counterplan. We assume they keep the counterplan, which links them to hedge. Because they take over advantages, therefore the net result of each side is the same. They have no offense. They stressed.
Just hammer out.
Okay, so because they do not say that they drop the counterplan, that means that what they do is they connect to all of the benefits in which, to all of the disadvantages in which they stated with their security K. They're creating, even though it's the states, that's still the United States. They're creating a hedge within the United States, which in turn creates a hedge throughout the world for the U.S. to go and do what they say is bad. Right, Right. And just to kind of go back, we never stated that China was a threat at all. In fact, from the 1AC, we the whole point of the China Glut is to help them, is to help China and get their economy back where it needs to be because of the surplus that they have. We also extend the Thayer 7 card, which says that the UN world involvement is comparatively better than non-involvement. So there, I believe the first card. What?
Hammer on what I told you. Just now you're yourself. Just and just talk about their hegemony. Talk about how they link to every single impact that they lay down because of the hegemony.
All right. So because again they didn't drop the counterplan, they link to every single impact that they brought forth. Basically, so what we're trying to say is, with this counterplan that they brought forth, with this state's counterplan, they in turn create all the bad hedge impacts that are happening. That includes anything from the imperialism, anything to what they say in the security case, with all the with everything that involves with them not. Yeah, I mean, that's, they say that the grid, I believe that's in their 1 in C with the grid, they say this it triggers an economic decline. Then, in fact, terrorist attacks, terrorism leads to extinction. That's what they said. Then it doesn't
conclude saying that, like, because they're contradicting themselves, the only reasonable choice is to vote half, because they're contradicting. They're creating a world full of contradiction. They're saying hegemony is bad, but they're facilitating it.
Okay. So basically what I'm trying to say is, because of what they're doing, they're contradicting themselves continuously. They're saying that hedge is bad, they're saying that hedge is good, and because of that, you can't vote for them, because how can we create a world in which something can be bad and something can be good? It can only be bad and it can only be good, but they can be bad and good together. It just doesn't make sense for them to do that, because of the fact that they themselves have said that hedge is bad. They've created hedge with their state's counterplan, and therefore these are all the reasons for which you should vote negative in this debate, for AF in this debate, excuse me, and